All right, Shalom. First and foremost, before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakha Kodash. Double honors go out to the apostles, elders of Great Millstone, who rule and teach well. Shalom Barakim to you brothers and sisters out there. All right, this is the brother Malachi from the Great Millstone Nashville camp. And Lord willing, that this lesson is edifying unto the hopeful elect of Israel. All right, I wanted to go into this word because it was a word that I was meditating on today, which is something that I definitely need to apply first and foremost to myself, which is why I figured I might as well go ahead and bring it out. The word accountable, all right, being accountable, holding yourself, not blaming outside things for self-afflicted, situations. Like, for example, my diet should be better. Do I have the worst diet? No, but it could definitely be a lot better than it is. Okay. I could, make sure I'm working out more consistently. I'm starting to get in the gym, but I can make sure I'm there more consistently, 3 to 4 days a week, waking up on time, stop hitting the snooze button. When you got stuff to do, get up and get after it. Being more independent, not relying on people for certain, for everything, for simple things. There's a lot of different ways, and those are my examples, that I'm talking about with myself. Okay, hell, stretching, you got to stretch. You got to take care of yourself. Especially the big one on my mind right now is money. All right, my money management is horrible. I need to do better. Do the bills get paid? Yes. Okay, but there needs to be savings. There needs to be, there needs to be less of maybe the word is commodities, or, not luxuries. Jake don't get no luxuries here, man. We're in hell. We're in Babylon, but just things that please your flesh. Then it needs to go down. It needs to go down, and we need to understand that we were not set here, which, let me grab that first. I'm going to actually grab that before I grab anything else. Because we always have to constantly remind ourselves why we are here. All right, so Micah chapter 7, verse 9, it says, I will bear the indignation of the Lord because I have sinned against him. Until he plead my cause and execute judgment for me, he will bring me forth to the light, and I shall behold his righteousness. Okay, so we have to bear the indignation of the Lord because of our iniquities, which that's an example of holding yourself accountable, understanding that you are in the predicament that you are in, the lowest state, because of what you have done, because of what we have done as a people. We can't continue to blame, outside sources. Don't blame somebody else for, you having a poor diet. Don't blame certain, things that might come up in your life that you really should already expect. Don't blame that for why you have money problems. Everything can be worked out. Everything can be taken care of, as long as we apply prudence and as long as we, just be mindful, be accountable of things, and if you ever hear something in a video that you're like, dang, I'm not doing that. Well, guess what? Today is a good day to start, Today is the perfect day to start. And now, and also at the same time, though, be merciful with yourself, okay? Because you're not gonna get it overnight, You're not gonna get it overnight, man. You try to save money. Don't expect to have a whop ton of money at the end of the month. It's gonna take some time, but every step forward is still an action taken. It's still progression, okay? We can always get better. We can always improve. Every time you might not work out at all. So you're like, what? Let me start incorporating walking. So now you're walking. Okay. Well, I'm not lifting weights. I need to lift weights. But you're slacking with that. But you're still getting to walking. Well, look, that's progression. All right. But, we got to constantly level up. So maybe the next week, maybe, something we procrastinate. All right, the one thing we can't procrastinate is with the Lord, but we really don't need to be procrastinating with anything, man. So a month goes by and it's like, well, I've just been walking. It's like, well, okay, well, maybe we need to incorporate weightlifting or jump roping, or maybe we need to, incorporate more fasting. Maybe you need to pray more. Maybe you're not praying enough. Maybe you have a portion of the Spirit that you given to you that that is telling you, look, do more lessons. You know, well, I do my 3. Well, maybe the Lord wants you to do 4 or 5, or, you know, we got to constantly hold ourselves accountable, examine ourselves, and develop, you know, as individuals. And may Yahweh Shema Shai, you know, grant unto us that growth. You know, Nathan Laya Tazamak Itazwam, you know, which basically what I said is give on to me mighty growth. Okay. You know, Ba Haracha in the spirit, you know, Baha Labia, you know, in the mind. Growth in general. You know, just pray. You gotta pray, man. That's the start of a progression, is throwing up a prayer, you know, letting the Lord know, look, I need help with this. This is what I'm trying to work on. You know, I'm acknowledging my fault here. You know, Salaki, how about Shemel Shai and Baba Kasha, you know, help me out. You know, and I don't, you know, pray to the Lord to lose weight and expect to wake up thin. You know, no, that's not how it works. You know, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the effort. All right. But the Lord will help you. You know, he'll support you, man. You know, I sometimes deal with back issues, you know, because of an injury that I had on the job. And I had to tell myself, you know, I had to snap out of it, because I'm thinking, oh, well, just pray to the Lord for healing and you'll wake up and be good. No, you got to stretch. You got to improve your diet. You know, you got to lift more. You got to lift properly. Okay. You got to be more mindful. Make sure you're getting your rest. Okay. And also know when to sit down. You know, sometimes you're sick or your body's hurting. And if you're able to, you know, sometimes you need to just sit down and be at the house for today, man. You don't need to be running errands, or maybe, you know, you got money, you know, saved up or whatever, or it ain't gonna hurt. You know, you're sick as hell. Call out, bro. You know, you can afford to miss one day, you know, if you're able to, because you know, every brother has a different situation. But if you know one day ain't gonna kill it, and you're dealing with an injury, man, you need to take off and just relax, rest. Okay, take care of your body, man, because at the end of the day, Esau, he don't give a fuck about you, man. All right, these jobs out here, they don't care about you. What, one day you're working hard and they love you, the next day you could be dead in a ditch and nobody's gonna give a fuck. You know, they're just gonna find somebody else. Don't think that you owe these people in the world, especially these jobs, anything, man. Now go to work. You need your daily bread. You know, that's not what I'm saying. If that's what you got from what I'm saying, then you're not listening to me. I'm saying there's times when you might be sick as hell and you don't want to call out because you don't want to miss work, but you might have to, man. You know, call out, take the day off, rest, you know, recuperate and get back at it tomorrow. Okay? Same with working out. You know, you try to work out, but you might be hurt or sick. Don't push yourself too hard in these certain categories to where it's just going to make things worse or hurt you. You know, we got to hold ourselves accountable with everything, not just working harder, but also knowing when you need to relax, you know, when you need to balance out. You know, maybe you're doing way too much of something and you need to balance it out with something else. Okay? But let me take a sip of this drink real quick. Got some mushroom coffee. Okay, I'll grab this right here. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Yahushua Hamashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. So it said, examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Let me go into that word examine. Matter of fact, I'm going to get the etymology of the word examine. It says examine. Put someone to question in regard to knowledge, competence, or skill. Inquire into qualifications or capabilities. Inspect or survey something carefully. Scrutinize. That's a good one. Scrutinize right there. Let's get that. Scrutinize. Observe or investigate closely. So it said examine yourself. So will brothers rebuke you? Absolutely. You know, and should you be seeking counsel? Absolutely. But there should be times where you are meditating within your own mind, you know, or talking out loud, you know, because I'll be honest. Sometimes I'm meditating and, you know, if I'm in the car by myself or whatever, I'll talk to myself, you know, just so I can think more clearly, so I can hear, you know, my thoughts better. especially with Satan. We be having demons messing with us, and we're trying to, remain level-headed or clear-minded, trying to have that mental clarity. But you got to meditate and think, look, I really need to get myself together here, here, and here. What the hell am I doing? What am I doing? What the fuck is wrong with me? You need to get on yourself. I need to make these changes. I need to stop doing this, stop doing that. And that battle is never going to end until we get out of here. It's a constant battle. This is the condition of the battle. Like it says in 2nd Ezra, I believe the 7th chapter. This is what we signed up for. The biggest enemy is yourself. All right, don't give in to your lust and desires, man. You gotta, like Yahweh Shai said, let me get it. Because there's certain things, man, that you need to give up. That it might be destroying you, or moderate. That's the biggest thing. Moderate, because you might not need to give it up entirely, but you gotta knock that shit off. You gotta put it down, man. And that can, I'm speaking in general, because there's a lot of things that could be. Once again, everybody has their scenarios, their lot. Okay, but you got to make sure you're moderating yourself. You got to make sure you're balancing, man. Especially drink. Speaking of myself, sometimes I drink more than I like to admit. I'm not getting faded and wrecking my car, but it's like, bro, you really don't need to be drinking all that. And especially as often, just relax. I'm speaking to myself when I'm saying this, but if you believe that applies to you as well and you need to hear it, then so be it. Maybe you eat out too much. It doesn't mean that you can't drink. It doesn't mean that you can't eat out. Now, if there's certain things that some people may need to cut off completely. Like maybe, maybe you like looking at, chicks online. Maybe that's distracting you way too much. Maybe, it's putting demons on you. Well, maybe you just, don't look at the videos. And you know what I'm talking about. If it's negatively impacting you like that, if it's affecting your walk, some brothers may need to put down the drink entirely. Or stop eating, going out to eat entirely, or whatever, dealing with women. Some brothers can't handle it, and they get carried away and their time is getting drained, and, whatever it may be, man. Either cut it off, moderate it, whatever. Just make sure it's not fucking you up, man. Seriously. Okay, make sure it's not fucking you up. Speaking to myself first and foremost. And then not only lessen things, but bring up things. Maybe you need to do more workouts. Maybe you need to start incorporating different foods and such into your diet. There's a lot of different things, man. A lot of different things. Okay, and I'm by no means perfect, because, like I said, a lot of these things that I'm saying, I'm literally telling you about myself, basically. I'm rebuking myself in this video. Because we're not supposed to be hypocrites. I can't come on this video and tell people, yeah, do this, this, and that, and I'm not doing it. And we've all been, been perpetrators of that, if that's the right word. It kind of don't sound like it is. That actually sounds pretty crazy. But, we've all done it. We've all said to a brother, or in a video, or at camp, or whatever, this and that, and we're literally doing that same exact thing. Don't be ashamed in the sense of, well, damn, maybe I should stop saying that. No, because what you said wasn't wrong, but you need to be applying it to yourself. Okay? You need to be applying it to yourself, man. And that's another thing that I learned, in my short time in this walk. Sometimes when you're at camp, and when you're doing a lesson with brothers and all that, you got to listen to what brothers say and what the Spirit has you guys going into, because sometimes the Spirit will point out something, and nobody's directly talking about you, but you're like, damn, that's what I do. Or I'm like that, or I have those qualities, or I have those emotions about certain things. And you got to check yourself. That's part of examining yourself, whether you be in the faith. Seriously. So Matthew chapter 18, I'm going to start at verse 8. It says, "Wherefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into everlasting fire." Which, this isn't telling you to literally cut your body parts off, all right? And it's not literally everlasting fire, okay? Because, hell in the Christian doctrine sense is not real. Okay, hell is a condition, or the grave, or the ground, where your body's buried. It says, and if thine eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life with one eye rather than having two eyes to be cast into hellfire. So what it's telling you, what Yahushua is saying here, is whatever may be hindering you and may, basically, I guess you could say maybe obstruct or stop, your path that you're on, then get rid of it. Okay, because nothing that you're doing, nothing on this earth is worth you losing your salvation, or falling out. If there's a woman that you're dealing with and she's just a straight demon and she's bugging out and she's creating problems and all these problems, and she always has a problem with you going to camp and all this and that, and you don't have real deal ties to this woman, like you started talking to her 3 months ago, but she's just giving you nothing but hell and stress and depression and why you always hang with, well, maybe you need to cut her off. Certain family members, or your whole family, maybe they're straight demon. Maybe you need to cut them off. Maybe you need to, once again, stop drinking, or maybe you need to stop, spending your money on video games. Maybe, who knows what it is? Only you really know. Well, of course, Yahweh by Shemel Shai, but I'm saying you got to examine. I can't tell you what it is. Okay, I can't tell you if you need to cut this off or that off, or if you need to do less of this, more of that. You need to figure that out for yourself. Okay, and that's part of being in this ministry. That's part of examining yourself, whether you be in the faith. Okay, so this is just something I wanted to put up, and Lord willing, it was edifying to the elect. I really pray it was. And before I close, I want to give all praise to Yahweh B'Shem El Shai, B'Shem Rachak Wadash. Double honors to our apostles, El's Great Millstone. Shalom.